With Reverend Awomoyi, the Assistant Regional Overseer for Oke-Aro region and the pioneer pastor of Apostolic Faith Church Oke-Aro. We want to congratulate you on the occasion of the 38th anniversary of the establishment of Oke-Aro Branch Church of Apostolic Faith. We wish you hearty congratulations. And on this anniversary, we want to find out that as pioneer pastor of the church, how or what does this anniversary mean to you?
Thank you very much, Brother Charles. We really thank God for this August occasion of our celebrating the 30th anniversary of the establishment of Apostolic Faith Church Oke-Aro. This celebration means our having hearts of gratitude and appreciation to Almighty God for His faithfulness and goodness towards the church all these years, because we can see that He has been wonderful to us, and personally to me too. It is a wonderful thing to see in their life.
Thank you for that. We know that pioneering any projects or efforts is not always easy. How was it at the beginning?
Well, I suddenly found myself coming to Oke-Aro when the late Reverend Aro, the African told me to be the Bible study leader for this side of the church. And at that time, there was a bungalow building on this premises, which our people around here, the late Sister Awomoyi and the late Brother sought from our landlady, Mrs. Campbell, to be a place for prayer, and subsequently we started having a Bible study in that place. By the time we started in 1990, it was necessary for Reverend Aro to come and appreciate Mrs. Campbell, to thank her for giving us the place, and was asking how much will it cost us to build the place. And at that time, Mrs. Campbell told us that she was giving the church free of cost. So it makes our initial effort very easy and simple.
Easy and simple, very good. But then, were you living in the neighborhood of the church at that time? Were you a member of the Oke-Aro neighborhood or Agbado, or what informed your selection as the leader?
I don't really know what prompted Reverend Aro to pick me up at that time, because I was living at Mende, Maryland at that time, and I think maybe what informed him of making that choice was because my wife was the principal of Agbado Comprehensive High School at that time, and because of our connection with the project, I think he decided to ask me to be the Bible study leader.
Okay, which interprets to the fact that it was even a sacrifice on your part.
Oh, of course.
So come down
of
to
course.
lead the Bible study
Of course,
center.
of course.
Okay, but looking back now, with retrospect, Apostolic Faith was used to having very few branch churches all over. 30 years ago,
Yeah.
what number will you, will, when it comes to location of churches, what number will Oke-Aro be occupying?
Well, initially, the church, Apostolic Faith, was not used to spreading. Our former leader believed on concentrating in the headquarters. But when Brother Shoyinka came in, he decided to spread the gospel so that people living far from Anthony could worship a little bit near their places of residence. And that was what happened. And in view of the fact that Mrs. Campbell gave us that place free of cost, Brother Shoyinka decided after the camp meeting of 1990, August, the first or second Sunday thereafter, the Apostolic Faith Church was inaugurated at Oke-Aro, and only 4 branch churches existed before Oke-Aro, and they were Agege Branch Church, Otuawori Branch Church, Ikorodu, and Ajegunle Iroko, which started on the same day before us. So we, as a branch church, were number 5 in the whole of Lagos.
Okay, that's interesting. And that time you started on a plot of land. How, but looking at this environment, the expansion has been enormous.
Yeah.
How were you able to work through that?
Well, it was, I think, the will of God for us, in the sense that when we came here and we were operating only on a plot of land, we needed some space for children hall as well as prayer room and other things. There were some buildings on this estate. The dormitories, there were 3 dormitories and a bakery on this estate. And then we understood that the Folashade Campbell family wanted to sell some of the dormitories. And then we approached them and they agreed to sell the 3 dormitories to us. We bought it from fund from headquarters because Brother Shoyinka was highly interested in our development, and we bought it for only 240,000 naira. Incidentally, when we bought this place, the frontage of the dormitories, the plot was there, which we understood has been sold to one Elijah. And if the Elijah continue to remain there, he will block us from access to the main road. And we told those who sold the place to us that we must have that plot of land. So they should arrange with the Alaja to pay her off so that we can get the place. They told us they will do that arrangement, but unfortunately, we don't know how far they have gone about that. By the time we were trying to make a fence around our property, we also got information that the bakery was about to be sold, and a church was negotiating to buy it. So in fact, we didn't know at all. It was the family who told us that a church is about to buy the bakery, and we know that if another church should buy the bakery, there will be interruptions, and there won't be any free movement of our members around here. Then we told them that they should give us some time so that we can buy it. And luckily for us, they agreed to sell it to us, and we bought it from assistance from headquarters as well. And by the time we bought it, it makes this place about an acre of land. That was what happened.
But when it comes to evangelizing and breaking in people from here, there, and Jordan, how large was the church at that beginning?
Oh, the church was very, very small. On the first day of inauguration, because of the people that came from headquarters and other places, we were just about 200. But eventually, by the time those who came to worship with us on the inauguration day, it was dropped. But by the grace of God, because some of our members were leaving the main town, coming to the villages, so we started getting more. And then with the evangelistic outreach that we put on, people started coming in. I want to say that by the time we started making the fence of this place, we didn't have artisans. Masons and carpenters were there were none here. In fact, we relied on our Agege branch at that time. So we had to loan builders from Agege to make the fence. Incidentally, the boys around here, the area boys and land grabbers around, they were so terrible that we decided to mop out some strategies to forestall all their hanky-pankies. And we had to call some of our members who were military people, like Major Odebumi, and then Lieutenant Commander Yomi Odujobi of the naval section. They came here to assist us. So while we were making the fence, we made the fence we made the fence behind for some time. Then the fence in the front, from almost the front, was done within 2 days. And by the time we were doing it, the Alaja and the people, they came and see us. It was done on a public holiday. By the time they passed, and then with Major Lebumi around with his revolver around him, and he told them that anybody should not come near us. And that was how God gave us victory, that we built the fence throughout that period. And they were very much afraid of us because they don't know what we were up to in case they want to molest us.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And now, from that little beginning,
Yeah.
the church has continued to expand.
Yeah.
We learned that even this present edifice was a bakery.
Yes, it was a bakery. In fact, the prayer room section of this edifice was where the bakery was situated. So we had to pull the bakery down and expand this place, and then with the permission of the overseer, we had to build it up to this present size. At the time we were building this present size, we gave ourselves just 10 years to use this present edifice, and thereafter we would need some expansion. That was what we had in mind. Yeah.
There was a joke about the bakery turning into a full-fledged church.
Yes.
Can you share that with us?
Well, the point is that bakery is where we make bread for people to eat, and becoming a church of Apostolic Faith, it became a place where the bread of life was being shared, and the bread of life is what may qualify anyone to inherit the kingdom of God. Yeah.
It's not even that I was looking to.
Okay.
But that saying there was a way you cajoled the members going to expand this place in order not to terrify them. That you started using diplomacy. Okay, we're going to erect this pillar.
Okay. Well, that was true because at the time we moved into the bakery, and we had measured where the thing was going to, the building was going to reach. We started erecting the pillars stage by stage until we had the length of the building we envisaged, and then before we connected everything together with blocks, and God helped us to roof it. And in fact, we still have in mind that in future we may have gallery inside. That was why if you look at the walkway around the window was placed there so that if you want to have gallery, you can expand through that place.
That's wonderful. In terms of development, how would you say Oke-Aro Branch Church as compared with churches that were established around the same time?
Well, in fact, I think up till now, when we have so many churches around Lagos, apart from Faith City Church and Anthony Campgrounds, Oke-Aro is the next as far as commodious space for development is concerned. We have at Oke-Aro presently about 1.5 acres of land, which is begging for development.
Altogether, you have pastored this church for close to 20 of the 30 years.
Not quite.
Yeah, but by our estimation.
Yeah.
So, how will you rate the personnel and capacity building within those years? The people that have been here, the people that left elsewhere to be men of valor, they are there and yonder.
Well, to be precise, this is my third time of pastoring this branch church. The first time I came in 1990, I spent 8 years, and I was moved away to Ifo for some time, and from Ifo I went to Agege. I think at Ifo I spent about 4 years. At Agege I spent about 8 years, and it was decided that this church was going to be elevated to become a district headquarters in 2010. I was brought back here as the first district overseer of the church, and after that again, spending 2 years here, I was sent away to Faith City, and when they decided to upgrade this place again to the regional headquarters, I was brought here as assistant regional overseer, and this is my second year again. So totaling about 13 years. I discovered that by the grace of God, God helped us to develop some good hands in this place, and some of these good hands are very useful in various places now, or have been useful in those places. For instance, late brother Dapo Chumu left this place to pastor Songro Branch Church, and from there he was moved to the headquarters as the secretary treasurer to the board of trustees. That is a high ranking position, and we are proud that one of us here got that position. And we have others who were here that were made pastors, like Brother Inka Oluloyo was made pastor of Itoki before he was retired. And when he was retired, somebody who was here before also was made the pastor. That's Brother Sam Okumala. And Brother Yomi Daudu, Isaac Daudu, who was moved to Akute as the pastor, was from here. And by the grace of God, is back here again as the zonal coordinator. Yes. And we still have some others like Gabriel Ogunlade, who is now the acting pastor for Akute. And the last, not the least, Brother Charles Omi, the interviewer, is one of those that have been moved from here to the headquarters as the deputy director for the printing directorate.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
And we noticed that apart from capacity development, that virtually all the expansion projects were done during your regime. Why? I mean, is it because you pioneered the church, or what's the magic?
Well, I think it was just the will of God and grace of God that has been on our side that made it so. Because all the expansion that we enumerated initially uh, came within the first tenure of my humble self here in the first 8 years. And when I came the second time as the district overseer in 2010, the extension on the left hand side of the tabernacle was put for sale, and we quickly made contact with the headquarters. They borrowed all the money and we purchased it. And the third time I am coming here again, just recently, last year, we got information that the plot behind us here near the prayer room was about to be sold, and we bought it. That made the expansion almost complete. Almost complete. It's yet to be completed. And by the grace of God, we have about 1.5 acres of land in the premises now. And because of the large environment here, it made it possible. I can't remember that year now, when the normal youth youth camp meeting that they used to do camp, they do in Christmas time, December, was held here because of the large space of this place.
Now, during the interregnum when you were moved out of this place, who were the other pastors and people who worked here and their contributions to the development of the church?
Well, when I left here in after spending 8 years, that was 1997 or so, I went to Ifo. On my going to Ifo, brother Michael Onoyemi was brought here, and he did not spend much time here. He spent only 1 year, and within that 1 year, he was able to procure or to build a well for us, which we still use up to today. And the people around worked with him, but they wanted him to develop the church building project that was left, and he didn't have the opportunity to do that before he was moved away on promotion as a district overseer. While he went away, I think that was in 19 brother Shuinka, brother Onoyemi, in 1999. Reverend Japhet Agbaji was brought here to pastor here, and within the short period of time that Brother Gbaje was here, I think within 3 or 4 years. He made a wonderful mark, which to me is very commendable. The children hall, the first bungalow which was given to us, which we now turned to become the children hall, the man rebuilt it and made it so big that it's even qualified to become an adult church. But he built it very well, and he made it the children hall. And thereafter, Brother Dele Akonde was brought in 2003, and he also spent some 7 years here, and he was the one who made it possible for Itoki to start as a church. And by the time 2010, he was moved away while I became the district overseer in this place. And thereafter, Brother Solomon Patoki came in when I was moved to Faith City, and he too, Brother Patoki, was able to spend about nearly 4 years before he retired and gave way for Brother Sheikh Ajiboye, who came in 2016 and left in 2018 before I returned as the assistant regional overseer.
Yeah, it has been a wonderful time interviewing Reverend Peter Awomoyi, the Aro for the Butimeta region. With hindsight, would you say the goal you set for the church at its inception has been achieved?
Well, I would say not quite. Not quite in the sense that at the time we built the present edifice of the church, we were thinking that within 10 years we would need to expand it, because we were envisaging at that time that we were expecting more than 500-600 people congregating here. But because of the expansion of the church, I mean the mission and evangelistic work, which helped us to build Itoki Church as well as Akute Church. Instead of expanding there, we were expanding outside, and that was the reason why that wasn't possible, as I said. But we still hope that very soon it may be necessary for us to expand here, so that when we would be having inter-church fellowship, like branch churches coming to the headquarters to combine service, then we need to expand so as to be able to create room for people from other branches that will come and fellowship with us.
That's quite interesting. And well, the church has been 30 years, and the society has really changed. For example, the consecration among the people 30 years ago is deeper than what we have these days. How will you assess the level of consecration of congregants these days?
Well, in the early days of the church, the congregants were very obedient, very obedient. You tell them to rise up, they rise. Sit down, they sit down. Stay there, they stay there. But nowadays, with the level of education as well as internet facilities and interaction between people of these localities and even other localities and even abroad, which is possible through the internet. You see that the consecration of people have actually dwindled, and we are only praying that God will minister unto our people, that they will still catch fire to make them to live the way our elders have lived.
Now, there was a time it was rumored that Oke-Aro headquarters of the Apostolic Faith was going to, you mentioned the expansion and all that. Um, the proposed expansion that time, is it decision for now, or whereby we have a new, the church with wings here, there, and yonder, and all that? Was that what you referred to as the proposed expansion?
No, you see, the expansion we had in mind initially was to be a brand new architectural edifice, and our headquarters felt it's going to consume a lot of money, and they advised that we should drop that kind of idea. And with that, we now are looking at the expansion, which will just make the present church to be moved right ways and left ways, and the whole building will still remain as they are. We just add some colors on both sides, and with that we may be able to get accommodation for up to 1,000 and 1,500. Yes, by the grace of God.
I learned that at the beginning of this church that poverty was a major issue.
Yeah.
That you were the only one who had a car, and then brought to who had his official car and all that. Will you say, because some people now call Oke-Aro, instead of saying Oke-Aro, they say it's Oke. So what do you agree with the Oke definition?
Yes.
And how good has God been?
Yeah. Well, we thank God very much, because as you are saying it now, I can remember that initially we had a turbulent time with the young people in this place, because their mind was that those few of us that God has been merciful to and have a little thing should carry all their body. They were not hoping in God. They were not relying in God. So they want all their problems to be taken up by us and solved by us. But at that time, they felt we were not doing enough, because we educated them that they have to wait for their time, and that God is good. He will remember every one of us at the appropriate time. And thank God that those of them who believe in what we were saying, God was merciful to them. Because at that time, some of them were in school, they were still reading, and some who were out didn't get job. And that made this place to be known as Oke-Aro because we were prayer warriors, and God was so faithful and merciful to us. He hears and answered our prayers, and a good number of people who didn't have work, God provided work for them, and things started changing, and God was blessing. As it was said, few people was having cars, but now the whole premises is filled with cars. No, that's not the only thing. You see, we call this place Oke-Aro because God hears and answers our prayer. For instance, people rely on divine healing here, and people who were sick to the point of death, God was raising them up when we prayed for them, and they relied on God. People relied on God, and people who were pregnant will rely on God because we taught them to trust God for everything. And even when some people try to distract them or make them fearful, we normally let them know that with God all things are possible, and that our God will do anything for those who believe. And very difficult childbirth, God has made it very easy for us. And people who were very sick to the point of death, as I said earlier on, I can remember a sister who was almost dying because of some evil spirit tormenting. But just suddenly, one afternoon when we went to pray for her, the Lord just delivered her from all the trouble. And immediately she just rose up from the seabed to say she wanted to go to the restroom. People were trying to say, no, don't worry, God has healed me. And that was what God has done for us. And a sister too, who was married for 8 years without a child, when we rallied around her, prayed for her, God gave her a baby. And God has been so wonderful and kind to us, and that's why we say this place has become okay.
About twice or three times, people had accosted me elsewhere and asked, was it true that almost Oke-Aro members live in their own house? And on deep reflection, I found that it was true.
Yeah.
That how did that come about?
Well, this is the reason why I told you initially that this 30th anniversary means our being showing appreciation to God and being grateful to Him for His faithfulness and goodness towards us. You see, a good number of us initially were in rented apartments, but today many of them are owners of their houses. Even up till a week ago, about a week ago or so, somebody came to me to tell me that very shortly before the end of this September, they were packing away from there. Why? I didn't want him to go with his family. He said they want to move to their own house. And this has been the goodness of God towards the people around there.
We thank God for His goodness.
Yeah.
And we thank God for His faithfulness.
Yeah.
But what would you say is the main challenge of this branch church as we mark 30 years?
Like I mentioned to you a while ago, some few young people felt the church and the ministry should cater for them, be responsible for their school fees and some other things like that. And the church is not built for social, how do I put it now? We are built for spiritual education and development. And but by the time we educated them and really spoke to them, they eventually got the message, and God provided for their needs. After all, instead of appreciating human beings, they now appreciated God for what God can do.
Okay. Reverend Awomoyi, once again, congratulations on the 30th anniversary. But now, let's just be futuristic. In the next 30 years, should Jesus tarries, where do you anticipate Apostolic Faith Oke-Aro will be in the committee of Apostolic Faith?
Well, as far as my vision is, I am looking at Oke-Aro, where with the structure that's on ground presently. We have a Vitemeta Action Region with Oke-Aro as the headquarters, and this is made up of 4 zones, namely Vitemeta Zone, Ikorodu Zone, Sango Zone, and Oke-Aro Zone. What I see now is that we think in part it cannot be up to 30 years. I'm foreseeing within the next 5 years. Within the next 5 years, all these 4 zones will become bona fide districts. So instead of having 4 zones, we'll be having 4 new districts, because presently Oke-Aro zone is expecting to have about 4 Sunday school stations before the end of this year, and by the time you add that with the 5 branch churches, it is going to 9, and Sango is already having 4 churches with 4 Sunday school stations, and Ikorodu is having a similar thing. It's having about 8 churches with about 2 Sunday school stations or so now. And then Implementer zone is having about 7 branch churches. And each of these zones are expecting to have some Sunday school stations within the next 1 or 2 years. And by the time we collate everything together, you will see that the adjoint region will be too big for the Aro, whoever may be the Aro managing it, will be too big for it. We are likely to have 2 new regions within the implemented adjoint region. That is what I foresee within the next 5 years.
That is great. One aspect, this interview will not be concluded without looking at the expansion of the sectoral sectoral parts of the church. For example, the choir. We learned that before, when the church was springing up, we were used to borrowing choristers from some other places and all that and all that. Is it, you still borrow choristers now?
No,
So
we don't borrow.
how do you?
We don't borrow choristers now, but we have developed our young people to have interest in music, and they are really showing interest. And that is not the only thing. Even the young ones too are being developed to become Sunday school teachers as well as even ministers. So we are mentoring people to become ministers so that by the time we leave the stage, very useful hands can come on board. And by the expansion, then we will be able to have hands to transfer to other places.
It's been a nice time talking with you, sir. Reverend Peter Adureni Awomoyi. At this juncture, I want to ask, what is your anniversary wish for Oke-Aro congregation on one end and the Butimeta region as a whole, now that the headquarters itself is 2030?
My wish, by the grace of God, is to say that I know that if we cling to God and trust Him with all our hearts, whatever is the desire of any individual, God is going to actualize it. And I will encourage them to live a righteous and holy life so that at any time they can fall on God, and God will always be at helping them, because the Bible tells us that before you call, I will answer, and we want Him to answer us every time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank God.
Hearty congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I will wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Any aspects